All right, everybody, let's get going again. So taking us home is going to be our very own Matthias Roberg, one of the Grow coaches, who has been a very important part of our journey as we look to move our business forward. Matt he's got a master's degree in management coaching, and his thesis in his master's was the impact of coaching on employee engagement. So he comes with deeply researched insights into what it takes to build employee engagement using coaching. And not only has he, got the theory and the research under his belt, but now with his many years as a business coach, working on the ground practically with many business leaders, he has been able to see how does this practically play out in the work environment, and how does his research and principles play out in the work environment. And I want to say that Matt really lives one of Grow's values of practicing what we coach, and it's very much thanks to his efforts and his involvement that we've been able to experience firsthand some of the principles that Matt's going to be talking to you about today. And the way we've experienced this is that it has helped us to come together very strongly as a team. And I think that all the team members would probably back me when I say that we're probably more engaged as a team now than we have been ever. And that's despite now, operating post-COVID, operating in a completely virtual environment, completely virtual office. So many of the principles that you're going to hear from Matt today we'll talk to, how we've managed to achieve that in these kind of virtual scenarios we find ourselves in, which I know is something that many of you struggle a lot with. So Matt, really looking forward to hearing you and your insights, and I know that they will build on what Julia and Paddy have already posed to us and will continue to challenge us around our current perceptions around what great leadership looks like. Thank you very much. Matt, over to you.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, everybody, and particularly Paddy and Julia. It's not often one gets that sort of introduction to a talk, and so I'm so glad to say that the stuff that we've talked about and that you've mentioned in your talks, we're going to now look at the practical implications of that for you as leaders. How does that affect you, and how's that going to affect your ability to lead, and how do you make what you've just learned this morning, how do we actually go and apply it in the workplace? So welcome to all of you as I present the case for a manager or business leader as a coach. Practically, I encourage you throughout the presentation, please, to take down some notes or keywords that either you agree with, you're reminded of, or something you've decided to do and not done, or you intend to start. Please make some notes on that, and those are the things that I would like to ask you to engage with your coaches as you work through this process. So let's bring it to something that's all relevant to you all. Let's bring it back to what we all had in this room. You've all taken the time out on your busy schedules today because you run businesses that get results and ultimately want to get more. That's why Grow works with you. Each of you will have areas of your business that is working well, some that's okay, and some that just needs attention. At the heart of your business, however, is no matter how big or small are the people that work with you. How they're doing and determines more how well your business will do. I hear business leaders often speak about the most difficult part of their business and the most challenging aspect of their business is the people that they work with. However, if you get your people practices right and surround yourself with the right people, it can be the most rewarding part of your work. In today's presentation, I'm really looking for a way to show how you can enhance your working relationships with your people and hopefully put a tick next to each one of these people performance indicators. At Grow, many of you may be aware that we apply a growth formula for the work we do with you. Here, we as coaches try and help you identify and focus on one or two areas of your growth formula that will have the biggest impact on your business in the shortest time. The growth formula is an easy to understand model that sets out what you need to master or build to truly build a successful, profitable, and enjoyable business. And the growth formula has 4 components: you, the leader, setting direction, a winning team, and operational excellence. Today, the presentation focuses mainly on you as the leader. Ultimately, success in your business is directly proportionate to your capability as a leader. While skills and dedication are required to be effective in your role, these don't allow you to multiply your efforts through leading a team or group of people. Without strong leadership abilities, you put a lid on your effectiveness as a leader. Or as John Maxwell says, he calls it the law of the lid. Today's presentation speaks to you, the leader, at that part of the growth formula, namely your ability to get employees highly engaged. Work we love. Now there's a concept. Working for love is a subject in a book, The 9 Lies About Work, written by Marcus Buckingham and Ashley Goodall. In the book, Buckingham and Goodall show why many organizations, systems, and practices that we take for granted today are actually built on flawed beliefs and assumptions. One of those lies, work-life balance matters most, Buckingham proposes that if each of us loved our work, if we each loved our work, we wouldn't really need to look for other activities outside of our work to enjoy our lives. He emphasizes that we need to find balance that only exists because working is something difficult, something we must tolerate, unnecessary burden. This requires us to find activities that we enjoy and that are different and separate from the work we do, to balance out the stress and strain of work. But what if we did work we love? Work that plays to our strengths, helps us grow intellectually, emotionally, even spiritually. Then we could experience safety, engagement, happiness, and fulfillment while we work. Obviously, today we don't think of it that way. We think of it as a transaction. We work for which we get paid so that we can buy the things and pay for the things we love. But what if we flipped it all around? What if we made the purpose of work to help people discover that which they love? But idealistic, I hear you say. And for many of you, it may be. It certainly isn't for me. I've spent 23 years of my working life, many of them relatively unsuccessful, I have to say, until I realized that work was not the problem. Even the environment that I was working wasn't the problem. After all, I'm still working in business, working alongside leaders doing much the same as I did. The difference now is that I've discovered my reason for being. Once I realized how to use my unique skills and talents, I started getting results that made me feel good and enjoy what I do. I can honestly tell you, I love my work. And what I do doesn't really feel like work. And I promise you, true story. Just about to play you a video.
I used to call him the graceful beast. Titanic will be famous. The jump, the spins, the elevation. It was amazing.
Sergei Polunin,
Youngest ever principal male dancer. He was so controversial.
You've admitted in the past that you danced after taking cocaine.
The media pushed and pushed and pushed.
And has quit the Royal Ballet.
It just exploded.
When I was little, I had such a passion. My family moved around the world to support me. I really did love Russia. That's when, I guess, fun was over. I would do ballet twice more than normal because I knew that's my chance to get my family back together.
His family was broken and he felt like, what's the reason for me dancing? What's the reason for me pushing this hard?
I wasn't able to make everything fine and good.
You finished your training at 19 years old. You started when you were like 4 or 5. The whole entire childhood's fun.
You feel like a prisoner to your body, to the urge to dance. I just want a normal life.
Oh. The fact that he can just stop it all, he would crush a lot of people.
The sad reality is that in spite of Sergei's extraordinary natural talents, hard work and success, and obvious value for both the Royal Ballet Company and lovers of ballet worldwide, the question is, why did he quit? He was passionate, a lyrical dancer. He was a passionate lyrical dancer, strong but fluid, soulful, angry. His tattooed body merely the most obvious signs of his need to push the boundaries. The powers that be at the Royal Ballet Company ignored this and instead did what they always do with their proteges: make them follow a strict approach of Royal Ballet way. He would dance the classical ballet repertoire in classical ballet form and would make him do it again and again to glorify the company, delight the London crowds. And so he danced and he danced and he delighted and amazed until one day at the age of 21 and only 2 years after he ascended to principal, he quit. Ballet, as you know, is unremittingly technical and a demanding craft. But if you build a technical craft on a loveless foundation, you need only burnout. Burnout isn't the absence of balance, it's the absence of love. The Royal Ballet Company has won the talent war, found the most technically and lyrically gifted dancer in his century, and then blind to his loves, helped him tear him up. And then he did what you might have done if you find yourself in a similarly untethered position. He found the one thing he loved and he followed where it led. He asked a choreographer friend to create one dance that he could truly love. He would practice this piece, dance the film in twice during one muggy afternoon in Hawaii, post the video on YouTube for his close friends and family to see. Well, he had no idea what would happen next. On the day after Valentine's Day in 2015, he published to little fanfare his version of Hozier's Take Me to the Church. Whether you're a fan of ballet or not, you'll recognize it's not only the work of a man at the end of his tether, but also a pure expression of technical craft and unabashed joy. You see, here is a man who's taking his love seriously, interlacing them with the craft and discipline and contributing to something passionate and rare. You'll see from his inside out that this is the fullest and the most authentic and richest expression of his unique position. And if you listen to what we said this morning, and you listen to what Julia spoke about in love, this is what we're talking about, love at work. If the people coming to your work and your teams could feel more like this, if you could help them to be fully engaged and energized in their work, willing to bring more of themselves to their work, what a beautiful and lasting contribution you and your team could make to the world. And ultimately, that's what we look. So how do we know? How do we know that if people who work for us love what they're doing, that they're highly engaged? Our attitude and understanding about people is often based on what we observe them doing. The research literature tells us and confirms that behavior of engaged employees is distinguishable in how they perform their work role, the way they approach their work and take responsibility for their growth and development. Results of employee engagement also confirms that highly engaged employees form engaged teams that help organizations achieve superior results. And looking at that screen there, I'm sure all of you will agree that if you could have a tick next to each one of those, life would be quite good. Okay, so here you're saying there's compelling evidence in the organizations who've engaged employees that they produce better results. So what is this employee engagement piece we're talking about? When researching employee engagement as part of my studies, I found that there seems to be no single accepted definition of the concept of engagement. Gallup defines it as, and they've done a lot of studying on engagement, as those who are involved, enthusiastic in and about and committed to their work and their workplace. However, rather than trying to define employee engagement, I find it more valuable to understand the conditions that contribute to employee engagement. And I personally like how Pat Lencioni, a well-renowned author and of leadership book, defines engagement in his book, The Truth of Employee Engagement. Here, Lencioni summarizes in the form of a fable, the 3 root causes of job misery, which is the antithesis to employee engagement. People need to have their efforts recognized and feel valued. When people feel invisible and feel their presence wouldn't be missed, they become despondent. It is crucial that someone, ideally their manager, takes some time to understand and recognize their individuality, their potential, and appreciate their abilities. If you're unaware of the value of your work, or you feel your work isn't benefiting anyone from your work, you'll feel though your efforts are pointless. When you do a job that matters most and makes a positive impact to other people, even if it's just one person, you feel your work is worthwhile and you feel relevant. When people have nothing against to which to measure their achievements or know what their goals are, how can they determine whether they've achieved them? It helps to have a clear idea what it looks like to perform well and what can be done to improve performance. And for me, this simple formula, as you will see a little later, if you can remember this and understand on the right, that's actually all you need to do as a leader. Look for opportunities to do those 3 things. Believe it or not, you're going to get the results you're looking for. And the things that we spoke about around vulnerability this morning, this idea of understanding what gets teams to be engaged and move forward, it all lies here in the simple 3 elements: recognized, relevant, and the contribution is independently verifiable. So why is it critical? Whilst the benefit of having engaged employees is compelling, more importantly, the data emerging from research employee engagement on employee engagement and management behavior is somewhat concerning. The research is telling us that despite, and you've heard it earlier on, the focus on human resources interventions in recent times, only 15 to 20% of the employees worldwide are engaged. The challenge here is that it's economically concerning because lower levels of employee engagement ultimately result in slower organizational growth. But the compounding effect on a global level means that global productivity is slow. In other words, if global growth is slowing, it means we don't make and sell as much stuff to one another as we have in the last 100 years. Growth is grinding down. And you could say decelerating growth, global growth, is the other global warming. The other concerning statistic is Gallup discovered in its management's reports that managers report higher levels of stress and burnout than the people they manage. This means mathematically that 130 million managers leading world's 1.3 approximately full-time employees struggle with their mental health more than their teams do. So in practical terms, this means the practice of management is actually broken. While we all understand the high value of high productivity in our high-functioning developed cultures, we don't actually know how to achieve this. How do we get this employee engagement right? Imagine if all businesses worldwide could double their real employee engagement from 20 to 40%, let's say. We could change the current version of capitalism. We could change the world. One of Gallup's most recent leadership breakthroughs when researching employee engagement, based on 100 million employee interviews, that's a fair amount, I would say, and 70% of the difference between the highest engaged teams and persistently non-engaged teams was just the manager. So the solution to improving productivity, you would say, is therefore solve the productivity dilemma, is just get management practices to create teams of highly engaged employees. Seems obvious. The dilemma, however, we've just discovered is that management's actually broken. So Gallup recently uncovered that another little important silver bullet, as they call it, that management behavior that is creating highly engaged individuals, so it does exist, without reporting high levels of stress and burnout, and in actual fact, managers that coach. So if you want to, and we're all looking for this and striving for this, enduring results for all stakeholders, then you need to have a team that will collaborate effectively. And if you want that, you need highly engaged employees. And to do that, all you need is managers who coach. So in simple terms, Gallup tells us that the silver bullet is that if you want to create and maintain high cultures of performance and development, it's always the manager that coaches. So the simple question is, turn the boss into a coach. Essentially what we get to do. So business coaching, you the manager as a coach. Let's just take you back a step. Every sports team needs a coach, and the best coaches make good teams. You've heard Paddy talk about that this morning, and we've seen it around the world. Well, the same goes in business, and some of you, and I'm sure a lot of you can attest to that because you've had coaching for a while. But any company wants to succeed in a time when technology has inundated every industry and most aspects of consumer life, where speed and innovation are paramount, must have team coaching as part of that culture. The problem is, it's not practical to hire a coach for every team in the company. Paul Campbell, the subject of the book $1 Trillion Coach, a book written posthumously by the Google team about this legendary coach and business executive, says this about managers and coaching. Best coaching for any team is the manager who leads that team. Being a good coach is essential to being a good manager and leader. Coaching is no longer a specialty. You cannot be a good manager without being a good coach. You need, according to the 1994 study of management, to go beyond the traditional notion of management that focuses on controlling, supervising, evaluating, rewarding, and punishing, to one of creating a climate of communication, respect, feedback, and trust. Isn't that what we've heard this morning? So the path to success in fast-moving, highly competitive, technology-driven world is to form high-performing teams and give them the resources and the freedom to do great things. Isn't that what Paddy spoke about? He spoke about this team of young people where we removed the coaches and we removed the clever people and we said, you're clever, you can do this. So what is coaching? That's the trick. My studies, I've come across several different definitions of coaching, but the one I found most appropriate and is the definition of the verb to coach. And essentially it's to say, to convey a valued person from where they are to where you want them to be. I've adapted this a little for the purpose of our audience today to say, to help an employee with potential move from where they are to where you want them to be, where you both want them to be. Think about that for a moment. Imagine you can get that. If you find out what they love, you see what they enjoy, they are skilled, you believe in them, and all you do is help unlock that potential. Isn't that what you did, Paddy? It's exactly what you did. Took a bunch of youngsters, put them together and said, we can win this thing. Tell us how you think we should go about it. And they unlocked it. So I told you early on that you as a leader, we're going to be focusing on you. I want to start here and I want to spend a few minutes just to spend on this. Really, it comes down to attitude. I think Julia has told us that embracing vulnerability makes a huge difference. Because what invulnerability really does is, in essence, it gives people permission to also be vulnerable. And when we're all vulnerable, different things happen. But that won't happen unless you, as a leader, as a person running your business, has a certain attitude about other people. You see, you fundamentally have to believe that other people can. You have to believe that they're capable. I spoke yesterday to our team as we were unlocking some of the IP that we were doing in the team health piece. And of course, the bottom layer of Pat Lencioni's model is vulnerability-based trust. But what we are saying ultimately, the challenge for us is how we perceive other people and how we see ourselves is different. And in actual fact, it's not different. If we just understand what's going on inside us, and the fundamental attribution error, which is described here, is really when we do something or when someone else does something wrong or fails, we attribute that to their character. It's a flaw in who they are. Yet when we do it, it's circumstance. What I want to suggest to you that it's always circumstance. My acid test for you at this moment is this. Think of a loved one that you have, someone you love, and they're working for someone. What would you like that person's attitude to be around people? Would you like them to believe in their potential? Would you, in spite of the mistakes and errors they make, still believe they can? And work hard at unlocking that potential in spite of some of the challenges they're faced with? And in essence, everything we do from now on Everything we talk about now cannot happen unless you are willing to understand that your key role as a leader, and I'm tough on this with leaders typically, your key role is not to be the smartest person in the room. Your job is not to run it from the front. Your job is to unlock the potential of your people. And if you do it, it will continue to scale and succeed well after your tenure. So now I can hear you all say, okay, fine, I think I've bought into this coaching thing. I kind of think that I do need to become a coach, but what am I going to do? Where am I going to start? I'm not going to go, do I have to go and study coaching? I've already got a coach. Well, it's actually a lot easier than this. Because in my own work experience, what I've realized, that fortunately the basis of coaching, which I now have practical experience of, is just a conversation. That's all it is. It's a conversation. And what we're saying is that all of you can do that. And I'll give you a few guidelines on how those conversations can go. And either you will prepare to start these conversations, or fortunately, hopefully, a lot of our clients are already doing this. You will start refining the way that you have these conversations. So this next section is a little unlocking that. But I'll remind you at the end of the day, what is the objective? What is an engaged employee ultimately? A quick reminder. They are recognized. You recognize them as individuals, valuably made. And I'll remind you of your story with regards to your loved one. Do you truly care about? You've employed them. You thought they were good once upon a time. Did they suddenly change that dramatically? Yeah, their results might not be what you want them to be. But please start by recognizing them and recognizing their potential. The next one is they're working and doing a piece of work. What they do for you and how they do it in your organization either makes them relevant or not. And let me tell you who helps them do that. You. You, the leader, and the other leaders in your business, help remind them that what they do is valuable. Cleaning the floor, a bathroom, the reception area, answering a phone, doing the windows, bringing you tea. Have you taken the time in recent times to tell people like that how what they do contributes valuably to the overall organization? Have you taken the time to explain what you're trying to achieve and do so that they feel they're part of the journey? That's all you need to do. People will respond very well. And of course, their contribution ultimately needs to be measurable. They need to understand independently that if they do a piece of work, that they can see they do it well. So objectifying people's roles and understanding them and being clear about what success and good work looks like is part of your responsibility as a leader. This, if you achieve these three things, folks, leaders, I promise you, you will get a different outcome. And we've seen it, as Andrea said, I've seen it with clients of mine, I've seen it who've attested the fact that the one thing they changed that made a material difference in their lives, they started having one-on-ones. So let's look at it. Why do they work? Why are they so powerful? Well, the first thing they do is they create the right environment for relationships. Two people connecting on a one-on-one basis promotes the most important ingredient for fostering effective connections. Being available to engage with one another and give of your time sends a clear message to the other person that they are valuable. There is nothing more valuable than your time, I will put it to you. And giving other people attention and piece of that is very, very meaningful. So this forms the basis of meaningful relationships. If your business is important to you, then by implication, so should the people that you employ to help you run that business. To achieve that optimal result, you must form meaningful relationships in your business. Then it's also powerful because it's intimate. The intimate employee-coachee, and I'm calling it coachee, focused agenda of the coaching relationship does three key things. One, it makes it safe. There's no third party to try and protect myself from or to concern myself with what they may think. And you heard, again, Julia talking about vulnerability. It's that piece that brings out that piece where we feel we need to protect ourselves, the armor. Often, it also helps employees and coaches need for serve the need for appreciation, care, and belonging. That's often not satisfied at work. It's particularly powerful when the boss engages with someone and shows their level of appreciation and makes time available. Employees who respect and appreciate you as the boss value the time you give them incredibly. And it only but enhances your relationship. Conversation engenders trust, as we've heard earlier on, such a key element of moving forward. Managers initiate coaching, or carry out coaching themselves help strengthen the employee attachment to the organization. And then, of course, there's the truth. Safety is created particularly by managers who are willing to be vulnerable. I heard it again this morning. It creates the conditions where employees feel safe enough to be honest without the fear of harm and ridicule, because although you're the boss and they respect you, they realize you're human. They realize that you can also make mistakes, which means it's okay if I make mistakes. And when I'm willing to do that, I'll share with you. Of course, the benefit of that conversation, that it's open and honest, is that the quality and the amount of information that is shared and the data that you achieve and get out of that helps you move your business along, the relationship along, solve the problem. You want to get to the truth of why something's not working. You want to understand and unpack what you need to do to make it work better. This information provides you with better clarity and context, the necessary ingredients for resolving issues, finding common ground, innovative thinking, constructive planning, and optimal collaboration into the future. So, kind of what are the ingredients of a good one-on-one? We know what it's good for. We know what it kind of needs to achieve. Well, the best results, like anything else you're doing, comes from planning, comes to making sure that you're prepared. The key elements that we look at are frequency and quality, the physical environment, and the planning and preparation. So I'll quickly jog you through those. First of all, the frequency formula. My favorite, my little hobby horse. And I've tested it with Grow. You see, frequency will vary depending on your logistics and the nature of your business. But one thing I picked up in my reading of Marcus Buckingham's book on the 9 Lies is that the research has shown them that the research indicates that the number of people a person can manage is directly proportional to the number of people that he or she can meaningfully have a one-on-one with in a week, on a weekly basis. So this would then suggest, of course, that if you have someone reporting through to you, you should be making time once a week to meet with that person. Our formula over the time is that we've tried this, and you can vary it slightly, but optimally we're saying if you meet with the direct reports once a week, 2 times a quarter with your peers, and any other key, boss's boss, other key individuals, at least try 4 times a year. If you follow that formula, so far I've seen it to be very powerful. But ultimately, whatever the formula be, frequency trumps most other factors. If you keep the ongoing nature, and I mean, to make that point, think of your relationship with your loved ones. If you spend consistent time being with them, sometimes in the same room, having conversations, generally when issues come along, they just go better. When you don't see each other for 2 weeks or 3, and then you come together, something minor can unravel. So I've found that quality to work for us at Grow. We make a point of connecting, and we know that when we have a situation where we don't connect as much, generally we have to start by building the relationship up again. Then, of course, there's the issue of quality. So we know that quality, and I'm going to unpack some of the quality elements now to make sure that not only is frequency important, but if you get these other little things right, your quality will also come. So ultimately, consistency and quality gives you that optimal frequency. And that's what we're looking for. So what are some of those qualitative elements? First of all, give enough warning. Where at all possible, schedule time in advance, allowing both parties to prepare their thoughts before we meet. This is particularly important if you have something of a technical or specific operational aspect to discuss. Enough time and the right time. Allow enough time to explore and collaborate properly. 90 minutes is usually the best. Too short, and there will not be enough time to get into the depth of the conversation. Any longer makes fitting the rhythm in difficult and can lose its impact. The other factor is that when I show you just now what a conversation should include, it's important that you have enough time to go through and make time for the different elements of a one-on-one. Good conversations should not be rushed. This is a conversation and should be experienced as such. These sessions should not be one-offs, so schedule them consistently. By putting them in your diary as early as possible, this will ensure that other events are planned around these meetings. And at this point, the caveat is this, please, if other things are more important all the time and you let these go, what you in essence are saying is that the person that you had the time with or that you scheduled the time with was less important than the other thing. But I've just tested this waters, and all morning we've heard how valuable employees are, giving them time, helping them perform. We're also realizing now that when you give them opportunity and space to be the best they can, they actually make your life easier and achieve the results you're looking for. So why would you not be spending more time with those key people in your business that are going to help you succeed? Try and set times in the diary where there's less possibility of interruptions. I would suggest to you that if Mondays are a crazy day, don't do it on a Monday. Often they aren't. Friday afternoon, maybe we're winding down. I don't know. Depends on the nature. You all know your own businesses and your rhythms better than I do. Suffice to say, find the time. Think about it beforehand. Let's talk about some of the venue characteristics. Try and find a venue that is relaxed, where there's no distractions. Blowers, loud voices, music, lawnmowers, etc. The focus should be connecting and collaborating, listening and thinking. These activities are done best and handled when there is a quiet, relaxed environment. No interruptions. The person arranging the venue should ensure that there are no interruptions. No one calling in, a meeting, a phone call. This includes your phones. Please put them off and put them away. Vibrating or seeing them visible will distract and ultimately interrupt that engagement, often at a critical time. Neutral, preferred. This is particularly prevalent when people of different ranks meet. In a venue where, like for instance, it could be the high-ranking person's office. The office permeates rank, reinforces that distinction between boss and direct report, which you want to avoid. These elements, if removed, enhance the engagement. If present, will minimize. We want to maintain safety after all. The online, telephone, face-to-face conversation, our reality today. Face-to-face conversations for conducting one-on-ones are always preferred. Non-verbal cues can be missed when online, and these often say more than what is not being said. Technology can promote a feeling of impersonality. Technology challenges like sound, like you saw me jumping around a little bit with my video this morning, can feel impersonal and disrupt your thinking and where you're going. And the technology can sometimes also feel impersonal. I mean, Julia said it, I think Patty feels the same way. It's much nicer being in the same room and talking to each other. You pick up stuff that you normally, but hey, our reality is that we can't have that. So, you know, we have to make it, we have to make the best of the world. What I will say, and these are the key things I would like you to remember. Avoid having tough conversations using technology if you can. Because as we've realized earlier on, it's never easy to get feedback. And this impersonal approach over here might end up landing wrong. However, if face-to-face is not possible, online is preferred. And I mean this kind of online, with the camera on, okay? So that at least I can see the body language of the person talking to me and I can engage with them. Not the phone call, if possible. I mean, phone calls are fine, particularly if neither online or physical is possible. Connecting is always preferred over not connecting. So then the last resort is a phone call. A mix is probably the best. And I would say in today's world, that's exactly what we need to build in. One-on-ones this way because it does enhance frequency. I have found it's easier to commit to having a one-on-one when I know that I can go to my computer and do this and I'm in the building. So I would say to you, yes, a mix will probably work because at least it answers the frequency part of the calculation and the model and the formula. So a few things that are also important to remember is this context piece. I love this as my hobby horse. Anyone who works with me knows I'm always on about it. And what I'm saying is when you decide to set up that meeting, think about what it is you actually want to achieve. What do you want to learn? Understand better, discuss. What did optimal look like? What would it look like if you had achieved a really good outcome of the meeting? Irrespective of the purpose of the one-on-one, the objective is for having this engagement is it should always result in learning something new, gaining new insights, and most of all, cementing the relationship that is characterized by trust. That requires you to think a little bit about it. Take that diary out and put it in and put it together for yourself. Specific outcomes and expectations are communicated. To establish trust, the organizer must remove uncertainty as much as possible when you're meeting. Don't surprise them with something they have had no time to get their thoughts around or prepare themselves for. The best way you do this is once you're clear about what you want for the meeting, provide the other person with some context, particularly if it's something out of the ordinary. Here, the person who's setting up the meeting gives some clarity on why the meeting is taking place, what they want and what they do not want from the meeting. And what they definitely do not want is the relationship to be tethered. This is true if the meeting has no other purpose than to catch up or share progress. This forms the foundation of the boundaries that keep both parties on track, but most of all promotes safety, reducing the chances of surprise topics emerging, which they may not be prepared for. So now they've got the conversation itself. So you can see that I spend quite a lot of time on preparation, because in essence, that's the challenge. Too often we believe a conversation in the corridor, a little bit of interaction, we've had our one-on-one today. No, let me play it quite clear. That's not a one-on-one, and I ask you not to use that as an excuse for having connected with someone. So I talk about, I've got these 4 C's, just so haven't worked out that way, which I quite like. And so what is it? If you want a good outcome for one-on-ones, it's important that you apply these elements. Remember, typically the objective is having engagement, making sure that you learn something, you gain new insight. So it's very important that that is the objective for us. So what we need to do is, first of all, we need to have connect. And here's a little bit of time that I feel we don't have enough time for in today's world, is we need to just rest, and when we meet with someone, connect with them. Just have a conversation, find out where they're at. Remember what we said early on? We said people want to be recognized. People want to be understood and known. Well, you need to take some time to do this, and particularly if you're busy. You know, Graham and I, Andrew and I, we don't see each other physically. We're not in an office together. So when we start a call, and Graham told me one day, he said to me, I don't like failing you because when you jump straight into the topic. And that was quite a wake-up call for me. Here's me, the guy saying we should connect and relax. And he's saying, but you don't do that. And you would argue that Graham is the guy who's focused on getting the job done. And I realized I was wrong. I needed to connect with him. I needed to understand and say, how are you doing? He understood how I'm doing. What is relevant? You see, sometimes people come into a room and they're just not ready for work right now because they've got a crisis at home. They've got some challenge that's going on in the world. That conversation is not going to go well unless you address it and you're aware of it. So you need to have those cues. You need to be aware. And so connection, I would say, is probably the most important part of the conversation. Please don't leave it out. Now I hear some people going, and I've heard this conversation, and Tila asked me yesterday, and she said to me, so tell me, what happens with the work part? It's great we're moving. What about me? Well, just before we go into that, let's just make sure that we also understand that that conversation is confidential. That what we discuss in that conversation and we prepare for is it's safe to talk about anything, and I'm not going to talk about it afterwards. If, on the other hand, there's some reason that I have to share it, I'll make you aware of it up front. And it's quite important that we get that context right. So the context, again, is reconfirmed. We're making sure that we understand what we're talking about today, so we're both on the same page, so we can see if the person is or is not prepared. And most of all, we make it safe. Now we go back and we say, what happens in the conversation from a dialogue perspective? Again, remember, I'm drumming in this idea of learning. Prepare to ask questions. What do you want to understand, learn, know, and be sure of? What are you confused about? What are you frustrated about? Prepare your questions as much as you can beforehand. This is one of the tougher tasks out there. Asking good, insightful questions is probably the most difficult thing I did when I studied coaching, because I realized that I thought I had the gift of the gab. And sometimes today I haven't felt that way, but the reality is the gift of the gab thinks, well, I can speak and I make myself quite clear. But when you're sitting with someone and you want to learn something, the question doesn't automatically always pop up. So I would encourage you to sit down and think about what you want to ask, and making sure what we've realized and learned is that unlocking new insights, which is ultimately what we want to try and achieve, and generating new ideas, and resolving problems, is literally to engage the brain. The part of the brain that helps us think and make decisions is the frontal cortex. In order to limit that part of the brain, or to stimulate that part of the brain, we need to ask questions. Besides asking good questions, we need to listen for meaning. The key thing here is to make sure that we understand fully what's being said, that the message that's been conveyed to us is understood properly, and the best way to test for that is to check, to ask, to clarify, to make sure that we've understood what the person's been saying. By doing a conversation this way, asking good questions and answering and listening for meaning, you'll unlock the new thinking. Lastly, when you've got towards the end of the conversation, you just want to confirm that you've understood what's been said, that you've agreed what you're going to agree on. So in other words, what is it that we've decided? Where did we agree we want to go? Making sure at the end of the conversation, we're just clear about what the way forward looks like. Then, of course, once we've finished the conversation, I like calling this closing the loop. What is that? The ethical boundaries. We don't talk about the conversation. We confirm that we're keeping that between us. We agree what we agree on. So we're making sure that we're checking in on that consistently. One of the important pieces of closing the loop is that we make sure that we set the parameters on how we're going to check on between our sessions. Is there something we agreed on that the other person has to give us feedback on? Let's put it in there. The other important piece then is to record the information. A little short mail sometimes is quite useful. Send a mail to someone, let them get an opportunity to give you feedback that we confirm this is what we discussed. I find that quite useful. Sometimes you may think it's been confirmed. Putting it in a mail kind of makes it more official. So I've just put this model together to help you, which I'll hand out to you. Firstly, before, what are the things we need to do? During the conversation, the 4 C's. After the conversation, what is it we have to need to do to make sure they keep the loop closed? That's the conversation. If you do this regularly, your people will feel recognized, relevant. You'll be able to see that how they're doing in their work and be able to test that. And of course, you will create engaged employees, which is ultimately your objective. And if you get all that done and you do that consistently, you're going to find that you're going to get kind of results through people and performance from people, which is discretionary. As part of your goal, this is what you're really trying to do. You're trying to change people from what we see on the left, some of that behavior that you see prevalent in your teams, to what we want on the right. Creative, honest, trust, multiplying, productive, and engaged. I'll put this, and this will be shared out with you, simple model, which I just described to you, which kind of just reminds you what the elements of a good one-on-one conversation should be about. And lastly, these are good books. I suggest and encourage you to read as many of these books. Many of the concepts talked about today appear in these books. I found there's really a golden thread at the end of the day when I talk to all these business books, particularly when it's on people. And that's engage employees. And it's about leaders connecting and being vulnerable. Thank you.